since my last video involving the Blue Jackets head coaching vacancy, it seems like simultaneously a lot and nothing has happened since that update, just based on the general reporting. The front office's messaging after the draft lottery of what they wanted to see in a head coaching fill was that they would, they'd get somebody for the job sooner rather than later. Although there are some recent reports that say they don't expect to fill that job until the next week at the very soonest. And it's been a little bit of time since the lottery, and so while this might be taking a little longer than we expected based off of what JD and Yarmo might have said and some of the messaging from there, it might be a little longer than what we would have expected based on their messaging. But for a normal head coaching search, I don't think it's really taking that long. There's still plenty of time for them to get their guy in before the draft. And as something that's been a little bit strange with this is that there hasn't really been a general consensus for a front runner for this job based on all the reports. Usually there are insiders that say, yeah, this coaching search is still going on, but we really know they're really trying to hammer it out with this specific candidate. With the Blue Jackets, it's just kind of been there have been obviously some speculations on who is in the running and who's stronger in the running than others, but there hasn't really been one solid, it's definitely this guy. They're just waiting for some of the contract to work out and stuff like that. It's just been, here are some guys who might have the inside track for this gig in general. The last video I made that I mentioned earlier, Mike Babcock was interviewed. That's what most of that video was centered around. But as time has passed, more reporting comes out, it never really seems like he was that big of a front runner for this job. It never seemed like he was. It never seemed like he was actually in serious contention to land the gig for the Blue Jackets. One of the original three that we knew were interviewed was also Peter Laviolette, although it did seem like he was leaning towards that Rangers job until the Nashville Predators fired John Hines, who was then hired by the Rangers, and then the Predators hired Andrew Burnett, who was another name that was attached to the Blue Jackets as well. So you can see how quickly these things can change, and maybe now Peter Laviolette enters the fray of potential Blue Jackets candidates in the stronger front again. Sergei Fedorov was also a name that was mentioned, but as reporting has indicated, there wasn't really ever any serious talks there. I don't think they even talked to him. Right now, one of the speculative leading candidates is Patrick Waugh. He has not officially interviewed with the Blue Jackets, but they have had some informal talks, and they can't really do an in-depth talk right now as Waugh is currently coaching the Quebec Ramparts until Sunday in the Memorial Cup final. So Monday is the earliest that they could get him in to have an interview and get an in-depth talk. So maybe the organization is waiting for that so they can get a deeper conversation and an official interview and see what Patrick would do with the organization at this point. This seems like a real kind of boomer bust move for Yarmo in the front office. With Yarmo especially, if this next head coaching hire doesn't work out, it's pretty likely that he won't get another one if this head coach kind of flounders, kind of like the way Larson ended up floundering in his position at the end of it there. But I do think that while that is a boomer bust move, that the idea of that move booming makes him one of the more, if not the most exciting candidate out of all the candidates that are likely at this point. The reporting really seems that the Blue Jackets are kind of high on Patrick Waugh, but again, they haven't really confirmed it. It's just like, well, we're feeling like the organization really likes what he could bring to the table, and they're looking to get him in there. Even though Patrick Waugh obviously would not be the goalie coach, I do think something that would definitely play a factor is how him and Elvis, that chemistry could correlate, where obviously they're both goalies and they play with a lot of emotion. Maybe Patrick Waugh could help Elvis kind of not necessarily suppress his emotion, but maybe focus it and harness it into better play, where Elvis the last couple of years, he has definitely seemed like he's playing with emotion kind of in a bad way, where he seems like he's kind of forgetting maybe some fundamentals, that he seems to be playing wildly out of position, not because he's a bad goalie, but because he doesn't really seem to trust the team in front of him, which I can't really blame him for that. But also he just seems to be not necessarily, he just seems kind of in his head about how he's playing as of late, and maybe Patrick Waugh could come in and help him with that, even though, again, he wouldn't be the goalie coach and the head coach at the same time. Maybe having that guy as your head coach would help in sort of way. Somebody else who has been a candidate this entire time is Pascal Vincent, although Elliot Friedman did say that he is, his quote was, apparently being interviewed for the job in Calgary after they fired Daryl Sutter. Somehow Calgary seems to be getting in my videos as of latest for hockey. Maybe they're clinging on to me, I guess. Pascal Vincent, he is an interesting candidate because he did appear to be kind of getting ready to take over the head coaching gig in Winnipeg before he left to join the Blue Jackets organization. So Pascal Vincent being interviewed, and he's stuck around this whole time. The organization does seem to be high on him in terms of what he could bring to the team, and it seems like some of the reporting and some of the quotes from Jarmo indicate that the only reason that he wasn't hired last time was because he had to do interviews over Zoom rather than Brad Larson knew they could talk to in person. Maybe that's just front office, some lying there, some BS from Jarmo, but that does seem like it would be an odd reason to not hire a guy that you think would be the best candidate. But I don't know, COVID times in 2020 and stuff, that was a strange era for all of us, and that's the same holds true for the Columbus Blue Jackets coaching hires. But I guess I will mention that them waiting could also mean that they're holding out hope that Joel Quenneville could be reinstated to the NHL so they could have a run at him. If that is the case, that would open up a can of worms that I really don't feel like going into unless I absolutely have to. So I guess if reports ramp up about the Blue Jackets really honing in on him, or if he gets the job, I guess I'll have to talk about Joel Quenneville and what that means. But I would rather not get into that if I don't really have to. And right now, it's just pure speculation. There hasn't been any really credible source behind it. Jarmo isn't going out there saying anything about it. So I will just leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it this far into it, I will see you at the next one.